my music over that music?
Recording in progress.
3 counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
I'm Jason, and I'm an event production manager. Here at the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Portland 5.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Metro Council business meeting, and followed by a work session on February 12th, 2026. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Counselor Lewis.
Present.
Counselor Simpson.
Present.
Counselor Nolan.
Present.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Present.
Counselor Wong.
Present.
Counselor Gonzalez is excused today, and Council President Peterson.
Here, thank you. With that, we have first thing on our agenda is public communication on non-agenda items. Georgia, will you please describe the audience our procedures that we will use for public communications on non-agenda items?
Yes, if you are testifying in person on non-agenda items, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by filling the raise hand function, by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus, or by dialing *9. When it's your turn to testify, I'll call in your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes, and the timer begins when you begin speaking. If you are testifying in person, there are timers located on your testimony table, on the wall, and on the digital screen. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. And Council President Peterson, I do not see anyone who has signed up to testify on non-agenda items today.
No hands raised.
No hands raised.
All right, we will close the public hearings portion of our meeting on non-agenda items, and we will move on to our public hearing of the day, which is on the draft regional transportation demand management strategy. On Tuesday, council received a presentation from staff about the proposed strategy for transportation demand management. Today, we have a formal opportunity within our council meeting for members of the public to provide testimony on that draft strategy. And staff are here to provide a very brief recap of the work session on Tuesday. And for those wishing to testify, make sure that you have signed up or have your hand raised. And we have back to go over some of the finer points. Noelle Mickelberry, our senior transportation planner, come forward. Thank you. Good morning.
Maybe work. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Good morning, Council President Peterson, members of council. Again, my name is Noelle Mickelberry, Senior Transportation Planner with Metro's Regional Travel Options Program. I'm here to just give a brief introduction to the regional TDM strategy for the public hearing this morning. The Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy, or TDM, is an implementation action identified from the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan, aimed at refining TDM policies and performance measurement in the region, as well as guide Metro's TDM investments through the Regional Travel Options Program. Next slide, please. This project has been underway for close to 2 years, with the first phase of the project conducting an in-depth needs assessment of TDM in the region. Engagement has included focus groups, 2 surveys to both the public and to TDM practitioners, input from a technical work group, workshops with RTO partners and TDM practitioners from across the region, and engagement with regional decision-making groups. The public hearing today is a part of our 30-day public comment period on the draft strategy. Next slide. The public comment period opened on January 12th and closes tomorrow, February 13th, with this public hearing today at Metro Council. The link here is available through the end of the day tomorrow to submit comments on the draft strategy, and we welcome input from the public and community members. Next slide. A quick review of the components of the regional TDM strategy draft. Chapter 1 identifies a shared definition of TDM, detailed in the diagram on the right here. Chapter 2 reviews the regional and statewide guidance and rules related to TDM, with the regional TDM strategy developing consistent guidance for the metro region. Chapter 3 includes updated TDM policies and supporting strategies, which I'll talk a little bit more about next. Chapter 4 develops a performance measurement approach to measure TDM's impact on performance targets that are set in the RTP for system completion and vehicle miles traveled. Chapter 5 is a framework for Metro's Regional Travel Options Work Program, with near-term strategies identified for Metro to play a role in through our grant-making, direct services, research, and regional coordination. Lastly, Chapter 6 details existing funding sources for TDM in the region, along with potential ways for TDM to be incorporated into new revenue streams as they are identified at the local, regional, or state levels. Next slide. The regional TDM strategy identifies 5 new TDM policies. Policy 1 is TDM policy and planning, strengthening and sustaining TDM implementation at the state, regional, and local levels. Policy 2, financial incentive programs, expanding access to existing programs and establishing new programs to reach more people. Policy 3, place and event-based programs, delivering programs that meet the unique needs of specific locations and communities. Policy 4, community-centered and inclusive programs, supporting TDM programs that prioritize welcoming and inclusive environments for people of diverse lived experiences, abilities, and identities. And Policy 5, adaptive and resilient programs, designing flexible and adaptive programs that respond to a changing climate, service disruptions, emerging technologies, and the evolving needs of travelers. In Chapter 3, each TDM policy includes 5 supportive strategies with identified implementation roles for different scales, whether that be state, regional, or local. Each policy area also identifies complementary efforts that will be critical to success. Next slide. Alongside adoption of the regional TDM strategy, updates are proposed for inclusion in the 2028 Regional Transportation Plan update and Metro's Climate Smart strategy. These are detailed in your packet in attachment 2. Next slide. And lastly, this timeline just shows how the TDM strategy will inform both the RTO work program and the work of our grant-funded partners over the course of the next 3 years. Following this public review of the draft strategy, we will make updates and finalize the strategy for recommendation by TPAC, Transportation Policy Alternatives Committee, and JPAC, the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, and adoption by Metro Council this spring. Immediately following that, our RTO program's core and emerging partners will begin work delivering key TDM services in alignment with the strategy. And Metro staff will work closely with those partners to identify opportunities for Metro to support their work, fill gaps, or develop new concepts through our work program development this fall. And we will open up one additional grant solicitation in winter 2026 for planning and project-focused TDM projects, and they have a 2-year timeline. And with that, I welcome any questions or comments, but can open it up to the public hearing.
Thanks. Counselors, any further questions of staff? We had a nice conversation 2 days ago, Tuesday. Any other further questions before we open up the public hearing for staff? Okay, see no hands raised and no one here on the council with any more questions. I will now open the public hearing for the draft regional transportation demand management strategy. Georgia, will you please reread the rules and procedures for testimony?
Absolutely. If you are testifying in person on the Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy draft, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me if you have not signed up in advance. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call in your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes and the timer begins when you begin speaking. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. So Council President Peterson, we have a few folks who have signed up to testify in advance today. I'm first going to promote Sarah Ford Odes as a panelist. And if our text folks could shoot it at the camera up here, that would be awesome. My camera is broken. Thank you.
Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Ford Odes. I use they, he, she pronouns, and I am Clackamas Community College's Transportation Assessment Coordinator. I am the sole transportation professional for our 3 campuses, servicing almost 20,000 students across Clackamas County. Our service area population is just over 300,000 residents. When I was approached by the Regional Travel Options team to provide testimony today, I was thrilled that transportation demand management is finally getting its flowers. And I applauded the RTO team for their hard work on this project. The American Public Health Administration defines transportation as a basic need. Transportation plays a direct role in providing access to resources such as job opportunities, healthcare services, open spaces, and infrastructure to support physical activity for many vulnerable populations. Data shows time and time again the shortfalls of relying on single occupancy vehicles for our transportation needs. From rising carbon emissions to traffic and fatal accidents, the pervasiveness of car culture is clearly hurting us. TDM strategies help everyone, from those with affluence to the most vulnerable among us. It's backed by data that TDM is one of the quickest, least expensive, and most effective strategies to reduce traffic and parking problems. In other words, implementing TDM strategies not only helps direct resources to programs that increase accessibility for the most vulnerable, but it also helps drivers by reducing cars on the road, therefore maintaining a safer and more positive atmosphere driving. What is frequently not considered is the social and communal impacts of relying solely on single occupancy vehicles. Empowering residents with education and support for multimodal transportation promotes physical activity, communal stewardship, and social cohesion. Having a transportation demand management plan in the metro service area would provide the necessary guidance and commitment to continue this work, which would best serve our residents. Our network of multimodal infrastructure is useless if knowledge is low, barriers remain high, and people are not incentivized to use it. Clackamas Community College has been working on bolstering our TDM strategies through my work, funded graciously through a Metro Emerging Partners Regional Travel Options Grant. Increased marketing for pass programs and transit options, physical outreach, and assessment has started to introduce our students to options other than driving. We have found that many students make the decision to drive out of necessity or a perceived lack of options. The students that do decide to take transit tend to not be able to afford it. I've directly seen ways implementing TDM strategies have impacted students' lives. Students have tearfully told me stories of how our programs have supported them in completing their education. I've had students come to me excited that they tried public transit or biking for the first time, and how it gave them a new sense of freedom or perspective. I can only imagine the impact of these kinds of low-cost, high-impact strategies were prioritized at a regional level. Transportation demand management is effective, it's efficient, and it creates thriving communities. I truly believe that it should be a regional priority, and I hope the council moves forward with creating the TDM plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Jeff Pozdolski, and then on deck, we have Leisha Shretha? Apologies. Yep.
Council President and members of the council, my name is Jeff Pozdolski. I am Executive Director with Westside Transportation Alliance, and I'm here to speak in support of the draft Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy. Westside Transportation Alliance is a nonprofit organization that partners with employers and jurisdictions throughout Washington County to increase the number of people using travel options. And we're also a proud RTO core partner organization. Our commute trip programs focus primarily on impacting people's behavior about how they choose to travel, including education, promotion, and incentive-based programs. And Washington County's commute trip pattern, I think, demonstrates the importance of having a coordinated regional approach as framed by the draft strategy. 36% of Washington County's daily commutes are from people that live outside the county and travel in for work. And an additional 29% are people that live in Washington County and leave the county for work. So together, that 65% of commutes represent more than 260,000 daily trips that cross county boundaries and impact the region as a whole. And that doesn't even factor in community-based trips for things like recreation, errands, and other activities. Westside Transportation Alliance supports these community trips with selected demonstration projects that inspire travel options use and show the positive impacts, including things like e-bike loan programs and event-based activities that encourage people to use travel options to attend events like Beaverton's Night Market and Hillsborough's Lightopia. The all-trips approach of the draft Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy will ensure that all programs, policies, and services are coordinated and work together across the region to maximize support for people to walk, bike, roll, take transit, and share rides, regardless of whether those trips are for commutes or for other purposes. So I ask you to support the draft Regional Transportation Demand Management Strategy. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Leisha.
Shrestha.
Thank you. You're up next, and then after that we have Sophia Rodriguez.
Good morning, Metro Council President and Councilors. My name is Leisha Shrestha. I'm the Executive Director of Division Midway Alliance. I'm glad to be here today to share about DMA's partnership with Metro's RTO program in advancing transportation option with safety access while building youth leadership in East Portland. We are a place-based nonprofit serving residents and small businesses who live in and work along one of the city's highest crash corridor. Our mission is to build a socially and economically resilient, safe, and prosperous East Portland. We carry out this work through 6 community-driven programs, with transportation equity being one of the core programming. As an RTO partner, we launched the Transit Education and Safety Youth Ambassador Program, or TESHA, we call it in short, in 2023. It is a 3-year initiative designed to cultivate youth leaders from East Portland and prepare them to become transit safety ambassadors. Using a train-the-trainer model, we train 9 youth through 11 workshops led by partners including PBOT, TriMet, Metro, and ODOT. Together, this youth co-created a culturally responsive transportation safety curriculum. Sophia, one of our youth ambassadors, will be here today to talk about and share her experience. And because of her involvement in our program, she earned transportation planning internship with City of Eugene just recently, we are really proud of that. So these youth leaders are actively training community members in multiple languages, including Dari, Pashto, Chinese, Vietnamese, Ethiopian, Korean, Burmese, and Spanish. And they are also preparing to host a large training session in English this April. Our goal is to train about 150 community members throughout the program period. And in July, they also organized a transportation resource fair that conducted 90 families to critical transit tools and safety resources. And they also organized the 3 Play Street events, and it's one of the first ever that was held east of I-205. And we are also planning to host a Transportation Youth Summit this September, and you are all invited. Please do come. And we strongly support TDM strategy because it plays a critical role in supporting all of the work that we have been doing through our organization. And this also closely aligns with our community visioning session, which highlights the need for both transit-focused infrastructure investment and sustained community-based programming. So we look forward to continuing this partnership and implement the TDM strategy and advance safer streets, improved access to transit resources, and more equitable transportation outcome for East Portland. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to promote Sophia Rodriguez to a panelist. And then on deck, we have Lindsay Huber.
Hi, good morning. Okay, I just want to make sure you guys could hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Sophia Carpenter Rodriguez. I'm currently a senior at the University of Oregon, and I'm majoring in sociology. I've recently become really passionate about community engagement and equitable access to transportation, which is thanks to my experience as a transit education and youth and safety youth ambassador, or as a TESIA intern in Portland. I'm still a TESIA intern, but during my time, I've had the opportunity to work directly with my community members, specifically that being the Latinx community, especially with youth and families, and teaching them about transportation safety and how to navigate the public transit systems. During this time, I've helped lead workshops with TriMet and PBOT, specifically focusing on what they offer, and we discussed topics such as pedestrian safety, using public transit confidently, and how transportation connects people to opportunities. One of my favorite experiences in being a part of community events are things like Play Street, which is where we create interactive activities that make learning about transportation fun and accessible. These events have really shown me how important it is to meet people where they are and make information engaging and culturally relevant. Through TESIA, I've developed many important skills, and I've grown a lot more confident in public speaking and learned how to communicate complex ideas in simple and inclusive ways, while also gaining experience in collaborating with local organizations and city partners. But most importantly, I've developed a deeper understanding of transportation equity. That specifically focuses on how safe, reliable transportation can impact education, employment, and overall quality of life. These experiences in TESIA have given me a strong foundation for understanding what my community needs, which I also know will help me continue to grow in the future, as I am right now as a transportation planning intern at the City of Eugene. Because of the skills I've used in my TESIA internship, I was able to apply not only my understanding of transportation planning through experience, but also skills specifically to work with my community, being the Latinx community here in Eugene. It also helped me begin my work to get to do special projects here in City of Eugene for the Latinx community. Every day, I'm so excited to start my job and to bring my experiences of community engagement, outreach, equity-focused thinking into transportation planning work that I've learned through my work with GMA and TESIA, and I hope to continue contributing in creating systems that are safe, accessible, and inclusive for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia. Just beware, once you're an intern somewhere, you might end up being an elected official next. Next.
Okay, next we have Lindsay Huber. Your time will begin when you begin speaking.
Good morning, Council President Peterson and members of the Council. My name is Lindsay Huber, and I am the Deputy Director at the Street Trust. Thank you to Council for the opportunity to testify today, and thank you to Metro staff for their leadership on this strategy and for convening the Regional TDM Strategy Technical Work Group. The Street Trust strongly supports Metro's leadership in updating and formalizing this strategy. It brings much needed clarity, direction, and consistency to how we advance transportation demand management across the greater Portland region. We especially appreciate the recognition that community-based programs, commute programs, and safe routes to school all play essential roles in shifting travel behavior. Policies focused on place and event-based TDM and community-centered inclusive programming reflect what we know works on the ground and should remain central to implementation. We also applaud the expanded definition of TDM to include supportive design and infrastructure and a focus on all trips, not just peak hour commuting. This reflects an important evolution towards multi-generational, cross-cultural, and community-specific trip making. As implementation moves forward, we recommend clearer role definition and coordination across jurisdictions. Intermediary organizations like the Street Trust often operate across multiple cities and sectors, and clear expectations paired with technical assistance for smaller community-based partners will support more efficient grant making and long-term sustainability. We also support the strong performance metrics in the draft and recommend supplementing them with qualitative storytelling and community narratives. Stories and lived experiences are often what resonate most with policymakers and the public and help justify sustained investment. We are encouraged by the vision in this strategy and look forward to continuing to partner with Metro to ensure every resident has access to safe, affordable, and sustainable mobility options. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see any other hands raised in the virtual audience, and I have no blue cards. And did I miss anyone today? Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you for the testimony. With that, I will close the public hearing on the TDM strategy, and the council is scheduled to consider formal action on the draft strategy in April. Thank you for everybody who came to testify. It's good to hear your stories. With that, seeing no further discussion, council, I will adjourn the Metro Council meeting and move into work session, but unless you want to say something, Councilor.
Is it possible to say something on this topic?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank all our partners for coming in, and you have really great projects that I'm excited to learn about. I'd love to visit, especially Division Midway. That's near and dear to me. I was musing kind of long term on this program, and I support everything that's being proposed here. But just in the future, I'm wondering if there's a lens applied for folks experiencing houselessness. Like I've heard from providers in our SHS world that folks in that community need support getting to a doctor or case workers and whatnot. So I'm wondering if that's kind of a frame that you've thought about of how we work with our SHS providers a bit more to support more holistically. That's a question probably for the future, but just wondering about that. And then just I'm reading about policy 5 with the adaptive and resilient programs. I've been reading in the paper about the city and the state considering Waymo, and what that might mean in the future if driverless taxis are a thing. How might that impact this program and what we think encompasses mobility in that sense, I guess. So nothing's happening right now, I don't think, but I feel like that's a thing that we'll have to grapple with in coming years. So just two thoughts. Great work, and thanks for coming out.
We talked a little bit about that on Tuesday. I think it was Councilor Rosenthal who brought it up, just on that idea of making sure that we're accommodating for that conversation about automated vehicles. And to the first point, it's not a full answer, but TriMet is a non-voting member on the new SHS committee, which should help with that conversation, because they felt that they had been trying to accommodate for quite some time that mobility, and have not had a place to talk about it.
Great. And I've also heard from some providers that their clients are taking scooters or e-scooters, and there's multiple modes to get to where you got to go. So I don't know what our role in that is specifically, but excited for that conference.
Come on up, Noel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And that is an area of work we've been exploring. And I think it's actually reflected a bit in our financial incentive policy area, where we're trying to address cost and access for folks. And so there are programs like, PBOT's Transportation Wallet Access for All. And we've been working with some affordable housing providers to integrate transit passes for residents. And so we've kind of been starting there, but that's definitely an area where we see a lot of opportunity to collaborate both here at Metro and with those providers. And we've started also installing transit screens where folks who might not have access to a mobile device can see, when and where the nearest transit site is. And we've been adding shelter locations for those installations as well. So it's kind of an evolving approach, but definitely something we're prioritizing with this. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councilor Rosenthal?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. One of the things that concerns me, of course, is modern technology, and we have, e-bikes and stuff like that. Who's responsible for, and particularly I'm concerned, Tualatin has an e-bike program, and you see these e-bikes all over the place, and you see kids riding them at fairly high speeds. Who is responsible for evaluating overall the safety applied to urban and rural areas? I'm just not clear that there's any consolidated analysis of that other than the companies that are promoting it.
So just a quick, there's been a lot of talk on and off in the legislature about how to regulate the electric bikes that have speeds of scooters.
Yeah.
Right? For individuals who have not gone through driver's ed.
Exactly.
And I know that conversation is ongoing. I don't think that they've come to a good place on that, but essentially you're driving at speeds where you should have to learn the rules of the road. I'm just observing in my community, the ability to go straight down the street and then get on a sidewalk and pass people at very high speed and then come back off the sidewalk whenever it's convenient. It's a difficult situation, but usually it's city regulated for the e-bikes, the like Lime scooters and that sort of thing. That's regulated at the city, but the safety conversation is at the state level.
Okay, but I'm not entirely confident the legislature always has their.
I'm just trying to give you the facts.
Shall we say, has the right firepower to actually come up with a complete evaluation. It's something that concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, agreed.
Can I respond to, is it okay? Can I respond to Councilor Wong's comment?
Yeah, come on up, come on up.
Yes, I'm not testifying, so I can't,
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So to respond to your question, Councillor Huang, so regarding houselessness, so we are reaching out to overnight shelter places in East Portland and also some affordable housing units and sharing about different travel options and also transportation wallet program and also enrolling them in low-income fare programs. So that's how we are supporting on the ground. And if you'd like to know more, we can talk.
Great.
More. So that's what
Thank you
I
so
wanted to
much.
address. Thank you
Thanks
so
for coming
much.
forward, appreciate it. All right, councilors, any further discussion? Seeing no hands raised, thank you again to all of our folks who came in and to the work to get us this far. With that, I will adjourn our business meeting and now open up a work session. Councilors, I have asked that we have the Chief Operating Officer legislative update at this point, so I will turn it over to our COO, Marisa Madrigal, and we can pull up Annalisa if she's available.
We could call up Annalisa and Andy, are you presenting, or do we have Annalisa online? Excellent. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, councilors. Happy to be here and nice to see you all. Kyung Park, for the record, your State Affairs Advisor.
And I'm Annalisa Curler, your Legislative Affairs Manager.
And we're here to give you a progress update of what's going on in session down here from Salem. As we're approaching the end of the second week, a couple of things we wanted to highlight. Just wanted to dive straight in, starting with some revenue forecasts and some conversations around disconnect and some of the funding and budget atmosphere here at the state. Last week on Wednesday, the state released its revenue forecast for quarter one. This is important because this revenue forecast also dictates how the legislature will make budgetary balances for the short session. Prior to this forecast, the legislature was looking to cover about a $750 million gap in their budget. So this was to cover the deficit and to also kind of leave some funds reserved for emergencies. After the revenue forecast, in total, about another $100 million was, there was an improvement of about $100 million in the revenue forecast, meaning the gap that the legislature would have to cover the short session has shrunk about that much to about $650 million. This alleviates some of the pressure, but it is definitely not completely 180 turn in the fact that we're still looking at budget cuts and reductions and a lot of difficult decisions. The state economists also highlighted that the risk of recession went down from 25% to 20%. So a little indication that maybe the outlook for the economy is improving. Related to this, the legislature, the Senate Finance Committee passed a federal tax code disconnect bill out of its committee. It is looking to disconnect partially from the federal code. The elements that are the high level elements are basically disconnecting from new car loan interest, gains on qualified small business stock, and the biggest portion is parts of the bonus depreciation for businesses. This was that accelerated first year depreciation that bonuses could deduct off their taxes. There were some other elements to that disconnect bill. For example, tax credits for employers that create new jobs. But the net benefit from that disconnect bill, if it passes, would result in a positive revenue gain of about $311 million. That disconnect will go into effect in 2026, so this current tax year. Moving on to kind of go over some of our bills that we're tracking from our legislative priorities. Our battery bill had its work session this morning and passed out of committee unanimously. It is headed to Ways and Means. I just want to once again flag it does not have a general fund impact. So we'll be focusing our efforts to move out of that committee and hopefully implement the new program at the end of session. My last update for you before turning it over to Annalisa is that the serial communications bill and the food and beverage bill, which is also very important for us and a lot of local governments and partners, is scheduled to be heard next week. There were a few last language changes to kind of make everyone come to agreement. So the bill was not dropped pre-session. It was dropped a couple of days into session, but we are headed to House rules and looking forward to some progress next week.
A few quick updates from me. Good morning, councilors. Good to see you all. Some good news on the speculative ticketing front. That bill passed out of committee, I believe it was last week, was heard on the House floor earlier this week and passed off the House floor 55-2. So that is just fantastic numbers, as you can see, and is headed over to the Senate. It is scheduled for its first public hearing on Monday afternoon. And, great appreciation to the Portland 5 staff who testified in support of the bill and are also joining us on President's Day down here in the Capitol to testify again in support of the bill. Couple of updates for you on transportation. Of course, Kyung and I were listening to the meeting earlier, so Councilor Rosenthal, I can follow up with some more specific information about the micro-mobility bill. It is currently still in the House Transportation Committee, but is scheduled for a work session on Monday. So I will follow up with more information on that for you. In addition to that, conversations have started around the ODOT rebalance. So this is trying to figure out ways to plug ODOT's current budget hole. There was a presentation earlier this week in a Ways and Means sub on just what the hole is and what possible mechanisms or funding streams exist in ODOT's current budget to kind of statutorily move money around. No decisions have been made on what that looks like like, but they have started to kind of put out there what possible things could be on the table for that conversation. And then finally, on the transportation front, as I think you all know, there has been conversation about moving the referral date for the transportation funding package that passed during the special session to May. That has been scheduled for a public, or was scheduled for a public hearing earlier this week and is scheduled for a work session, I believe, Monday. So that is possibly moving along in its progress as well. Those are some really quick updates from us. Happy to answer any additional questions that you all might have. And as always, Ki-young and I are available by phone, by email, if you guys have any other questions.
Councillor Huang.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for all the great work you're doing down there. I know it's long days and a lot of running around in Canva, so thank you. You mentioned for the speculative ticketing that it was unanimous, 55-2. What were the concerns that the opposition has around that?
I would have to follow up specifically with the two members that did not vote for the bill and get back to you on that. There is no formal opposition on this bill, so I think it might be some individual concerns.
Okay, well, just interested to know why people might not support it. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions, council? All right, thank you for that update, much appreciated, and go do good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get you back out on the floor. All right. With that, we'll move on to our work session topic, the Regional Land Banking Work Plan. Over the past year, Council has discussed the potential benefits of regional land banking to support housing production. Twice in the past few months, Council took formal action to support housing acceleration strategies, first in the Regional Housing Coordination Strategy and then as part of the Housing Production Accelerator Fund. Today is our first opportunity to discuss a work plan for a land banking study. And to share the details, I'm going to kick it over to Wilkinson. Where are you? Willu Wilkinson, our Deputy of Planning, Development, and Research, and you can help introduce the entire team.
Wonderful. Thank you, Council President Peterson, members of the Metro Council. We're really happy to be here today again. I'm Malu Wilkinson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director of Planning, Development, and Research. And we are so excited to be able to be talking to you early about moving forward one of the elements that was in the Regional Housing Coordination Strategy that came out through hundreds of conversations with our local partners and housing developers, and also was an element of the Housing Production Accelerator Fund that Council created in January. So we also were demonstrating the collaboration that is going into this exploration of an exciting new tool for our region. This is a collaboration between Planning, Development, and Research, the Housing Department, I think Emily is here somewhere, and also with the Social Innovation Program. And so we're really excited to be able to bring together some different parts of our agency to do this exploration. And you'll be hearing today mostly from Andrea and Brian, who are co-managing this work. And we've been doing some early research and developed a draft work program. We are really looking for your feedback on that. We want to be sure that we don't get too far without having some guidance from our council. So we're just excited to have this opportunity and time to hear your thoughts today. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Okay.
And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some slides to pull up. Councilors, good to see you this morning. Brian Harper, Principal Planner in the Community Investments Group in the Planning Department. Can advance the slide. Thanks. You can see our agenda on the screen. We're going to talk a little bit about background and talk about some of the work we've already done in the region. And then I'm going to hand it over to Andrea to go through the work plan itself for you all today. So next slide. So I think it's critical to talk a little bit that this is not our first foray into land banking exploration in the region. So you know that this work has been going on for well over a decade in some form or another. You can just go back to 2018-19 in the Southwest Corridor when we participated with Proud Ground as part of a catalytic land cohort to look at land banking opportunities in Southwest Corridor. Now that was meant to be we were looking at like what are quick ways to enact land banking in a very specific geography to address anti-displacement and gentrification issues that come with the big investment we were making there. What came out of that work was a set of recommendations for how we could advance land banking in that way, in that geography. And so we have that at our disposal, which is informing this work moving forward. Going back a little further, the Oregon Brownfield Coalition, which we convened and led as far back as 2014, was able to get land banking enabling legislation at the state level put in place for a brownfield land bank. So that is also something we are using as we move forward in this exploration. So this work has been going on for a while. Next slide. So I'm not going to belabor this slide too much because Malou has just said it, and you guys have all passed these items in the last month or so, maybe even going back further, the Regional Housing Coordination Strategy action about exploring land banking, and also the Housing Production Accelerator Fund, which has some language around supporting the land banking work. Next slide. So how could land banking support housing production is kind of the key question here. And I think, I'm not going to read the slide, but I think it's important to understand that bringing together regional partners to talk about this at a larger scale is about setting goals and expectations amongst everyone. And really land banking is about accelerating the acquisition, removing some of the uncertainty and the risk around property acquisition. And so these are the key components of these discussions with partners. How do we use this tool to mitigate some of those concerns moving forward? Next slide. And in that vein, there is land banking work, quote unquote, that's been done here for many years. And I think it's important to highlight that within this building, we've developed a lot of expertise around acquiring properties, doing the due diligence around those acquisitions, the disposition of those properties for development, the property management while we hold on to properties in the shorter term and longer term, leasing properties back. And so we have programs within multiple departments, including our transit-oriented development program and the site acquisition program that was related to the housing bond. Our brownfield program has been running since 2008 and is doing environmental due diligence on properties around the region since then. And of course, Parks and Nature has a long history of acquiring properties, managing those properties in the long term, maybe even leasing those properties back. So there's a lot of expertise that's been built in-house in Metro for this work. Next slide. But there's also this question of an independent authority, which is something that the enabling legislation allows and is part of this exploration. What is a land bank authority? This entity could hold, acquire properties for redevelopment. It's quasi-public. It would be independent and separate from any other government agency, and that's what the enabling legislation allows you to create. And this is it could give you unique powers. The legislation could be tweaked to change some of those approaches. This is something we see all across the country. Land banks exist all across the United States in this method. And so what we're really here to talk about today is the exploration of those three different approaches, going all the way back to Southwest, like aggregating sort of like our relationships with partners and getting into legal agreements to support land banking work, doing that in-house here at Metro, and this independent authority. So these are the three big questions that I think this work is trying to get the regional partners to discuss. And so I'm going to let Andrea take away what that might look like.
Next slide, please. Good morning, Metro Council President and councilors. For the record, my name is Andrea Pastor. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a senior project manager on the Urban Policy and Development team. Next slide. So again, we really wanted to stress that we do really see this as a collaborative effort, not just between the housing planning and social innovation program, but really we rely so heavily on other departments within the agency. So we will definitely be working very closely with the Office of Metro Attorney, our partners in finance, asset management. We've already begun conversations with all of those departments. And then obviously we really are looking to learn from the lessons that our Parks and Nature colleagues have to offer us as well. And that's really setting the stage for this project. In the next slide, you'll see, we see this as a 3-phase program, which we are kind of already doing that background work through the phase 1 piece, where we're doing internal assessments of our programs to make sure that we are collaborating and understanding how each department works, what is working well, what we could really improve, and Along with that, we're also having conversations with our jurisdictional partners that we've worked with through the site acquisition program, asking them about, how things went with the various properties that we've already put out for development, and, what opportunities we might be able to leverage in the future. So here on this proposed timeline, you can see the little arrow that's circled is where we see ourselves right now. We're also doing a considerable amount of background research just to really learn about what land banks do in other parts of the country. We're consulting with the experts that we had talked to back in 2019 to have them help us refine our consultant scopes of work that will be hopefully going out to solicit for pretty soon, and making sure that we have the answers to the questions that we know are going to come up during these discussions. And those discussions we are anticipating will begin in late spring. We see a series of facilitated conversations with potential regional partners. We will have a number of conversations that will get at the governance and financial and legal implications of the few different options for a framework that we're hoping we would have under consideration, and we'll plan to come to Metro Council at least twice during that phase to give you updates and bring you the feedback that we're hearing from our partners. And we would hope, next slide, please. So yeah, under that section beginning in May, we would like to consider the range of land banking program structures, share the research that we'll have accumulated by then, including our internal assessments of our capacity and what would need to change in order to scale up that work. Discuss what other organizational and financial implications are of each of the options on the table. Next slide. In terms of our engagement, we are anticipating a pretty broad engagement with a number of different types of partners, both jurisdictional staff, housing providers and housing advocates, community-based organizations, and potential funding partners. As far as they're interested in being, involved in this early stage, because we really want to hear what the potential, benefits and pitfalls are early, so we can help design a framework that really works for the region. And we would, next slide, please. Come back to Metro Council then in what we anticipate to be the fall to ask for some direction on what framework the council would like us to proceed with into that phase 3 program and policy design piece. Next slide. And during that final phase of this initial work program, we would anticipate doing the refining the program goals and performance metrics, establishing acquisition and disposition criteria, and prepare a funding and legislative strategy, which we're already beginning to talk to GAPD about what might potentially come up and look like. We may want to potentially tweak the existing legislation. We may want to think about other funding opportunities, but we would anticipate being able to tackle those in detail through the spring of 2027. And now I'll turn it over to Johannes to talk about the potential community impacts.
Good morning, Council President and councillors. My name is Johannes Wolde. I'm the Social Innovation Director. And I also like to maybe step back and talk a little more about the usefulness and the benefits for land bank. Across the region, land banks are now operating in more than 20 states with a focus primarily in supporting affordable housing, but also housing production at large. One of the consistent lessons we are learning from this work is how it can strengthen the region's ability to make an intentional community-aligned investment, especially around under-invested neighborhoods. In that sense, the land bank can better align sites with priorities like affordable housing, mixed-use development, as well as broader economic development goals, just beyond housing. And it's also a question of capacity. A land bank can enable the region to act more quickly to acquire and steward key sites for public purpose. Without that capacity, decisions about strategic sites are often driven by timing and market pressure. Next slide. And we have seen this dynamic plays out locally, and I will share a couple of examples from our context and our region. About a year and a half ago, a community partner and a school district reached out about the former Kmart site in East Portland, and the one on the left. The property was about to change hands, and they asked whether a public agency or a public-private partnership could step in. They had ideas for converting the site into a STEM school, mixed-use development, or a resilience hub. In the end, the site was sold to a trucking company. It was an outcome the community had hoped it did not turn that way. Then about a year later, something similar happened with the Regan Cinema in the Centennial neighborhood, the one on the right. Again, community members asked whether a public purpose entity or a foundation or a government agency could acquire the property. But things moved very quickly, and the site was purchased by a speculative buyer. In places that do have land banks, they can usually step in sites like this when there are strong community interest and community priorities. Next slide, please. A land bank can also help with leveraging resources. They can include traditional housing funds such as housing bonds and tax increment financing. But they can also include underutilized resources such as philanthropic program-related investments, Community Reinvest Act capital, or opportunity fund zones. And in some cases, land donations that otherwise might not be easy to align with housing. The point here is not that land bank solves everything, but it is one tool in the toolbox, but one that can create more flexibility in how the region acquires and deploys resources in support of both affordable housing, but also broader community priorities. Next slide.
Okay, so you've heard a little quick overview of work program and some of the reasons why we see such potential opportunity and why we think it rose to the top it rose to one of the 16 in the regional housing coordination strategy out of over 100 potential actions that were considered. And we're really excited about the opportunity that this brings. It's a small component of a way that we could potentially help address the housing crisis in our region. So, we lost the questions. But we're really looking for your thoughts on kind of if you have questions about the work plan and really who you would like us to be engaging in the outreach that is helping to explore moving this idea forward.
Great, thank you. Deputy Council President Juan.
Yep. Thank you, Madam President.
I remembered the full title.
It is a long time. Gosh, well, I'm really excited about all this work that's happening. I'm going to start with some appreciations. I want to thank actually President Peterson for envisioning the social innovation program a couple of years ago. I think that's really helping us as an agency rethink about how we do public-private partnerships. I think this land bank concept could and should be an example of that. I thank Johannes for getting up to speed so quickly and the whole team. But I know Johannes will go on LinkedIn and randomly message the executive directors of land banks all across the country and learn about what they're doing. So I really respect that hustle. But I think there's just a lot of great practices nationally from the 20 other states that have land banks. I think I've seen when I've talked to some of them that they're all public-private partnerships in that they often don't live in an agency. They're kind of like a pseudo, has agency stakeholders, but a lot of private investment as well. And I think that one thing that allows them to have is speed. I said on Tuesday, I think at our Merck meeting, that in transactions like these, speed matters. So I think that's one of the strengths of having an entity that can move nimbly and quickly, and can also generate investments from private philanthropy and other investors. So I'm really hoping that's kind of one of the options that we're looking at is like, how do we set up an entity that, you know, works in the Oregon way, but allows us to move quickly? Because I think that's one thing that we hear a lot is like, things are on sale out there and there's an auction and it'd be a great deal. It'd be an amazing community asset. And then a speculator comes in and swoops in, and we just never have that chance. So we're always playing catch up. I think we've proven that land banking works on a small scale in specific geographies, but I think it's time to turn that expertise loose on how do we support that, like, as a tool across the region. So I'm just really excited for this work and excited for partnerships. I don't think I have any questions, but hats off to y'all. Thanks.
Thanks. Counselors, any questions for staff? Any thoughts, comments? Counselor Rosenthal.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it's great that we're embarking on this and we have it looks like a good work plan laid out. I'm a little confused as to, at some point, we're going to have to make as they say, a fish or cut bait kind of decision as to what kind of structure we're going to go forward. And I was a little unclear as to when you think that we're going to have that. Is that going to be late in early in 27, I think? Is that when you think, I mean, it'll change, of course, or it probably will, but you never know. But is that what you're projecting right now?
We're hoping that we would get indication from you all about what preferred framework you would like us to move forward with designing, fully into a program by this fall. And so it actually is fairly quickly. And that way we would ask that we don't wait for the entire region to sign on. We have been advised that we could easily move forward with 3 to 5 jurisdictions that were willing to join us at that point to really flesh out what that program design would look like. And then other jurisdictions would be available, it would be an opt-in at that point later once the program is established.
And do we know at this point whether there's going to be any legislative need to do anything legislatively statewide to allow for any of this?
I don't think we have a clear indication that there's anything because we're not sure what the feedback's going to tell us about the preferred method and approach. If what we're hearing a lot of is that we don't want an independent entity, then we may not need to even look at the state legislation for a change. Right. So it'll really depend on the early conversations, I think, and we might have a clear indication of that direction by midsummer or late summer.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Counselors, any other questions? No, I guess you've hit the mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good job.
Done. Moving forward. No, great presentation. Appreciate it. Of course, one more question, Councilor Wilson.
Just one question. This is proceeding in the same track with the brownfields? I mean, or are they being integrated together in the process or on parallel tracks?
They're actually integrated.
Okay.
Our brownfield work is integrated into this. I didn't mention that, but we've done a lot of the inventorying work on that side.
Right.
And with the assumption that if we do go the route of an independent authority, we want to have all that information at our disposal going into those conversations. So it's happening at the same, plus having that knowledge of what's available out there in that arena is going to be super important, I think.
Okay, great. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to the next conversation. All right, we'll move on to our Chief Operating Officer communication on everything else but legislative.
Thank you, Council President Peterson and Council. Just a quick update, a couple of operational things that are happening and that you'll be seeing soon through communication channels. I'm currently reviewing for approval multiple updated internal policies, including heat-related illness, facility closure, nepotism, outside employment. We have a kind of a suite of ethics policies that we're updating that we'll be rolling out soon and communicating about. So just wanted to make you aware of that. And then just a scheduling note that DCOOs Andrew Scott and Holly Calhoun will be covering the meetings next week as I'm out of the office. So that's it.
Awesome, thank you. Counselor Communication, anything to share for the good of the order? Counselor Rosenthal.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just I attended the WEA meeting today on legislative issues, and they had both Senator Solman presenting on her bill 1586, as well as Representative McGlane talking about the governor's transportation alternative, and they also touched upon the decouple aspect. And just a couple points. I mean, as you know, we've been Councilor Gonzalez has been working with Senator Solman. WEA tends to generally support the Solman approach. That's just my read from the room. The Representative McLean's discussion of the transportation initiatives going forward left me somewhat baffled. It seems like there's a lot of winds blowing in a lot of directions, and there doesn't seem to be as much consolidation as one might hope at this point in time. So that's sort of a little bit confused. And then there seems to be a significant concern among some of the local jurisdictions, economic developments, about the decoupling from the automobile sales tax issue. So there was quite a bit of discussion about that. That was brought up by former Commissioner Rogers. So there's a lot going on. Those are three of the four big issues that are being discussed. And of course, they have to come up with a balanced budget. So.
Thank you. Councilors, any other communications? Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to share with councilors that I was able to testify yesterday, virtually, blessedly, for everybody's sake. But I was at the House Transportation Committee in support of the bill that would form a work group for statewide transit funding study. It has a set of amendments that make the appointments both more bipartisan and lower barrier, removing it from being a governor's appointment, hopefully lowering the fiscal, and it got a lot of support. And thanks to Kiyoung and Annalise for the assistance on drafting the testimony.
Thank you. I will just, sorry, Councilor Huang.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick shout out and kudos to all the comms teams at Metro. We've had some, I think, positive articles around SHS. An article just came on 82nd. We have a big decision coming up tomorrow at Policy and Budget. So just, yeah, I think we're putting our message out there. So kudos to all our comms folks that help us out.
Good point. Thank you. I also testified yesterday in Salem for the package that's coming together for the Blazers, for the Moda Center, and Senator Starr was kind enough to give us the opportunity to talk about how the city of Portland and Metro are really what we're giving up in order to be able to reprioritize the Moda Center remodel in terms of Expo for us, and they're taking over P5. And I think that was nice because we didn't have that space necessarily to talk about how we're participating. So thanks to Senator Starr for asking the right question that he didn't even know was the right question. So with that, anything else?
Oh, but I'll just add one thing. I noted the bill, the Solman bill that we discussed Tuesday, their hearing is set for Monday.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned, and our next regularly scheduled meeting is February 17th at 10:30 a.m. See you all there. In the meantime, have a happy Valentine's Day and Oregon's birthday.